Hi, I'm Justin.
Also, I hate the way my voice sounds, so if you can do whatever Photoshop does to voices, make me sound awesome.
And this is my lovely friend,
The beauty in the eyes of the beholder, and it's just about getting into the seat of being the beholder.
Hayley.
I don't think you have to be particularly perceptive. I just think you have to look up.
This podcast is mostly just her telling me stories.
If you expose yourself to the possibility that this might be really awkward, there can be something just really cool on the other side of it.
She thinks that her life and way of looking at things are
Oh, I was kind of waiting on you. I thought you were getting your stuff ready. You're waiting on me?
pretty normal.
You got to edit out all the misinformation about the Amish.
Maybe you can relate.
I would like a chance to re-sing the Amish Paradise.
If you want lighthearted stories
All right, you want to talk about goats?
and stream of consciousness,
I just woke up and needed some friends, and so I bought them.
then you're going to like the Sunny Side Up podcast.
Sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up, sunny side up.
So, if you're at all like me, you may feel that you're living in a world that can be a bit overwhelming and confusing at times. I'm also a huge fan of podcasts, documentaries, docudramas, stories, and of just information in general. Between all of that and the social media and news, sometimes our brains can feel like they're on overload. Hayley and I hope that this podcast can be something of an antidote to all of that. Like little jello shots of joy and distraction. None of it is too serious or really too informative. Mostly it's just two friends who have conversational chemistry talking about whatever enters the minds of relatively ADHD people. We hope you enjoy.
But oh my gosh, making friends as an adult is such a different thing.
It is.
Yes, you have to be so intentional with it. And I don't know if there is a how-to guide. My algorithm actually did send me a how-to guide this morning. I mean, it was
how to make friends as an
it
adult.
was an article literally called "How to Make Friends as an Adult." It wasn't especially helpful. It was things like "Be your best self." And that's not the tips I was looking for.
Yeah. Well, I've been just trying to be my second or third best self for the last few months. So I'm really thank you. I'll now pick
so helpful.
my best.
Dear writer, thank you so much for your insight.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for new friends because I feel like my plate is kind of is full. I'm not against it, but I'm not actively seeking it. But this year I keep running into the conversation about adults making friends or adults not having friends, and the issue of loneliness.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that that's why the Jewish community is successful or not, but it is an important thing to consider. And COVID shined a spotlight on what it can be like to be isolated and to be kind of distant. But just in casual conversations with friends and different circumstances with family members, it's been a prevailing conversation this year on loneliness as an adult.
Yeah.
It's a different sort of thing.
It is.
Community is so important, and having somebody to shoulder the burden. But I knew someone who moved back. They had lived overseas for about 20 years, and they were just very transparent. Because not a lot of people are just going to be open and be like, I am kind of lonely, because that feels very vulnerable.
Yeah.
But she admitted it, and we discussed, well, what can you do? When you're younger, you've got college, you've got bars and clubs and kind of built-in social opportunities, but especially in our rural area, you got church.
Yeah.
Period. If you don't have family in the area, what do you have?
Yeah. That's a good point.
How do you make friends as an adult?
Yeah.
No, that's a question.
Oh, I just was yeah.
You didn't read the article.
Yeah, I didn't read the article.
I'm here to get to source ideas.
I mean, and I will say this, I was raised we were very fiery, passionate Christians who were the point of coming to church was to become the best version of yourself and bring Jesus back in a very short amount of time because, the world was definitely going to end and all that stuff. So
Right.
And so people that went to church for social reasons, I spit on you. That was how we thought of them. I couldn't have had more contempt. I was just so contemptuous of them. So that was sort of the mindset growing up. And then as you begin to evolve, and I started to think in my later life of like you said, how do you make friends as adults? part of the trick is you do want to find people that have some sort of like worldview that remotely meshes with yours. Not that you want to also, I'm all about having people in your life that don't mesh exactly. And that's great and expanding. But you need to have like some people in your life where it's like you have some common ground. And that's where I think the brilliance of church possibly is if you do have a local church that you can find that it is good for you, maybe take some of the pressure off the spiritual growth side. Find some good podcasts. Find Stephen Furtick with his $2,500 sneakers. Potentially Marty with his 3-foot-long beard. You can find good folk out there to help you grow spiritually in whatever way you want, and just let local church be, among other things, about meeting people. Because honest to God, it's a great way to meet and grow your social circle.
Yeah, again, after going through these studies and kind of looking at the Bible closer, I think it is about community more than anything else. Like God is not really telling the Hebrew people to evangelize and go out and save souls. He's telling them to look out for each other, to bring in the weakest ones, and maybe that is probably the success of them as a people group, is that they look out for the weakest members of their society. Yes. And I don't want to step on the toes of certain American political views, but there's probably a built-in lesson there on look how successful a group is when they are focused on protecting their weakest members. But the person that I knew, she had come from overseas and settled here. Her children are grown, so there's no like PTO to get involved in. There's no, because the parents of your kids' friends are your natural. Yeah, that's you're obligated to them. It's like family. You don't get to choose them. That's just who you have. Yeah. Or if your kid is in a sport or something. But once you're past that,
that's a good point.
If you're outside of that era, then you have church, and they had gone to these mega churches for a really long time, or these contemporary churches where the lights are dim and you kind of go in and sit in the back row and you don't
file out
yes.
quietly with your head down and don't look at anybody.
Yeah, so she found a denomination with a smaller congregation, old school methods of worship and things where she was more physically plugged in.
Okay, yeah.
And like kneeling to pray is it's a thing that's kind of missing from our contemporary churches, like it or not.
Yeah.
But she said I was so much more like physically involved in the service that it felt more sincere, but the congregation was also smaller. I had to get to know people, which is what she was looking for.
Yeah.
So in that regard, church was not about evangelism or spiritual growth, but entirely about the fellowship. And I'm not sure that that's a bad thing.
Right. No, exactly. And I mean, this is my wrestle, I think, as we're speaking, but I feel like I've tipped pretty much, I've tipped hard into if you can find people that will, like, you can do life with, even if you don't love everything about the preacher's style or believe in everything theologically that they believe in or whatever else that I used to place heavy emphasis on. The worship is the most amazing, astounding, I get swept away. But if you can find just people to do life with that are good folk, to me, that's worth the price of admission. Yes. I
think that's it. That's what my current view is anyways. That's the money shot. The rest of it is
great.
Can be fabricated. You can build it from somewhere else if you have those things.
Yeah, totally agree. Hello, lovely friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And it would mean the world if you would tell other people about this podcast and maybe even spam your social media accounts with just how much you're enjoying it. If you are, of course. Also, commenting and rating us on whatever platform you're downloading or streaming from is incredibly helpful to a little startup podcast like this one. On the other hand, if you are dissatisfied with your listening experience, please leave all of that hate on someone else's podcast. Just maybe to confuse them a little bit, right? But most of all, we hope you keep looking up and looking for the sunny side of life.